What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine Spider-Woman issue 38, brought to you by this creative team right here. This issue picks up where the previous issue left off. Spider-Woman was being arrested by the San Francisco Police Department because they thought that she was in this abandoned train shaft trying to rob the city of a large deposit of vibranium. It turns out it was actually Black Tom Cassidy, the Juggernaut, and Siren, Black Tom Cassidy's niece. They were the ones who did it, and Spider-Woman was trying to stop them. Spider-Woman escapes on like page 1. Then she goes back to her apartment where Lindsay McFabe, her roommate, was throwing a party. The party is still going on, and then Storm, Colossus, and Angel crash the party, and it turns out Angel knows one of Lindsay's actor friends, and so he says, hey, you know, your friend said that I could come hang out, and then they go and they say, hey, Jessica Drew, we know that you're Spider-Woman. And so they go into this other room to talk, and she says, I did not rob the Mint. That was Black Tom and Juggernaut. The X-Men say, we believe you. And so then somehow they are able to track Black Tom and Juggernaut to this abandoned ship somewhere out on the ocean. And then the rest of the issue is basically a big fight scene. We get some pretty cool moments here. I mentioned in my examination of the previous issue that I like Black Tom because even though he is a villain, you can tell that family is very important to him in these issues. And part of that might be I read an issue of Classic X-Men years ago that showed Black Tom before he was evil. And so that kind of humanizes the character a little bit for me. That issue kind of gives me a little bit of bias for the character, I guess you could say. But even in this issue, at one point, when Black Tom is kind of giving his crew orders, he's thinking about how Teresa, she's just a kid. And then, spoilers, but at the end of the issue, Juggernaut is missing, and Teresa is wounded. Teresa, that's Siren. And Black Tom tells the police, hey, Spider-Woman and my niece had nothing to do with this. It was just me and the Juggernaut. And then he tells Storm, I'm leaving Siren in your care. So even though she is his niece, and you can tell that he loves her very much, he is doing what's best for her. And Spider-Woman even says, like, if you cared about her, you probably shouldn't have let her follow you into a life of crime. And that's what leads him to saying, okay, you're right, I want her to join the X-Men. And that will, in theory, keep her safe, keep her out of prison. And so I really like that. And that's something I kind of miss about the character. To be honest, the character hasn't really been used a lot in the last 20 years. I remember when I was first getting into the X-Men, he was going through a secondary mutation in Chuck Austin's X-Men run where he was like turning into a tree, and that actually might have even gotten its start in the 90s in some Deadpool comics, I think, but he was like really turning into a tree, and then he and Juggernaut, their friendship kind of was severed, and then that was mostly in service of Juggernaut becoming a good guy and joining the X-Men for a little bit, and then we didn't really see a lot of Black Tom until fairly recently. In a lot of the X-Men stuff I haven't read, in the Krakoa stuff, I think he is now back with, well, he's with the X-Men now, but for a long time we weren't really seeing a lot of Black Tom, but I don't know how he's being characterized now, but this was something I really liked about him in these issues, that, yeah, he's not a great guy, but he's not the worst, and he does care for his family and his friend Juggernaut, and I like that. So we do get to see, like, Colossus at one point, he fights Juggernaut a little bit, and Juggernaut says, you know, the last time we fought, I won, and, you know, that's probably not going to be any different this time. And Colossus, he's able to outthink Juggernaut, and he says, you know, I've gotten smarter since then, and I like that. I like that Colossus is not just thinking with his fists, that he's able to grow and change a little bit. And also, there's another nearly fight between him and Juggernaut says, you know, you and I, we're kind of the same. We're both big, strong guys, and we look stupid, but we're not. And I like that Juggernaut is, A, self-aware enough to say that he's not stupid, and also that he is willing to admit, Colossus, you're not an idiot either. I think this is a trap that you're luring me into. And that's not just this issue saying that Juggernaut is not an idiot. Later on, future appearances will show that even though he looks like a big dumb guy, he's not dumb. He is smarter than he looks. And I like that character characterization about Juggernaut. I think that's a good way to write him. And so not a whole lot happens here. I do find it strange that Professor Xavier only sent 3 X-Men to investigate whoever this new mutant is. And I kind of like the idea that Cerebro can tell there's a new mutant in San Francisco, but they don't know if it's a man or a woman or who it is. And that's something that probably thanks to the movies where Professor Xavier can like zoom in, like he can tell, okay, there's 7 million mutants on the planet, and then he can like zero in on one that's in San Francisco, and then he can look and see like, oh, okay, that's a girl named Teresa Rourke or something like that. And that was kind of how it worked in the movies. Here, it doesn't work that way. And I think that does lend a little bit of suspension, I guess, like suspense is the word I'm looking for. Like the X-Men, they know they're looking for a mutant, but they don't know who it is. And so when they first come to Spider-Woman, she says, I'm not a mutant. There were other people there when you were sensing this new mutant. But I do find it odd that Professor X only sent Angel, Colossus, and Storm. When has there ever been a time when you know that there's a new mutant on the scene, and then you try to recruit that new mutant, and then something doesn't go wrong? The last time this happened, you had Dazzler and Kitty Pryde, and the Hellfire Club attacked in both instances, and then before that, you had, like, when Professor X went all over the world recruiting the all-new, all-different X-Men, and, you had Nightcrawler was almost mobbed by an angry mob in Germany, but other than that, you didn't have a whole lot of, like, crisis situations when a new mutant was being recruited, but then you look in, like, the 1960s, and whenever they first met Alex, he was almost kidnapped by the Living Pharaohs, he was kidnapped by the Living Pharaohs people, whenever the X-Men tried to recruit the Blob, and he said, I don't want to do this, and then Magneto's crew got involved. It's always a big mess when the X-Men try to recruit somebody into their team. So why wouldn't you send everybody to go and look into this new mutant? And as it turns out, the new mutant is a criminal involved in a big high-stakes robbery. Why wouldn't you send everybody? And the answer to that is we don't have room to have 6 or 7 guest stars in this issue when we're also introducing Siren for the first time, and we've got some subplots going on with Jessica where she's dealing with her own stuff. So we don't have room for all of that, and I get that, I do. It's just a little weird that Professor X wouldn't think, hey, this might be a good idea to send more than a guy who can fly, and then Storm and Colossus. And I kid Angel a little bit, but what can he really do? Also, I feel bad for Angel because he seems to always be the one to get hypnotized. Whenever in the 60s, when the X-Men were fighting Sauron, he was the one that Sauron hypnotized, and then in this issue, somehow Siren is able to make him see hallucinations of, ironically, a pterodactyl of some kind, kind of like Sauron, and then Angel is mind-controlled into working with Juggernaut and Black Tom and Siren, and it says that somehow she is able to use harmonic frequencies to manipulate the chemical balance in the brain. It does not make any sense at all, and this is something we don't really see Siren or Banshee using their powers in this way. I can't remember if Banshee used his powers like this when he was first introduced during the whole Factor 3 thing, but it's something that, it's kind of like how when Magneto was first introduced and we would see him use his magnetic powers to push away organic beings who are not made out of metal, and that really made no sense at all. How sometimes when someone introduces a mutant and they say, yeah, their powers can work this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, and then later writers will say, that doesn't really make sense. What if we just said that she can scream really loud? And that's powerful enough. If she's able to fly by screaming, and she's able to, like, I know Banshee, when it was in that issue that first introduced Guardian from Alpha Flight, when Banshee was fighting him, his scream liquefied a tree. So her scream is powerful enough. We don't need her to also be able to somehow, using her auditory powers, create visual hallucinations. That really doesn't make any sense. And then Angel even knows that he's fighting Storm at one point. He says, hey Storm, it's me, Angel, I've switched sides. And it'd be one thing if they had him thinking that he's fighting like a monster, like a demon or something, but it's actually Storm. That would kind of sort of make sense if we accept that her powers could work this way, but he knows that he's fighting Storm, and then Storm basically is able to slap around a little bit, and then he is back to normal. But anyway, the fight keeps going, and then at one point, Siren has tracked down Spider-Woman into this room, and then Siren sends a bunch of broken glass towards Spider-Woman, and then she's like, oh no, I've killed her, what have I done? And I guess that's our clue that Siren isn't as bad as her uncle and Juggernaut, but it turns out it wasn't actually Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman then pops out of nowhere, seemingly naked, and then she's thinking about how I stuffed my costume with packing material and tricked Siren into thinking that that was me. Now, this doesn't make any sense, because let's say you have packing peanuts. First of all, that's going to take a lot of packing peanuts, and I'm just imagining like a humorous situation where a naked Jessica Drew is trying to stuff her costume with packing peanuts, and Siren walks in and is like, what are you doing? But also, when we see Siren seemingly kill Spider-Woman, we see that the decoy that Spider-Woman sent after her has long dark hair. So you use like packing material to stuff the costume to make her think that Spider-Woman was coming at her. Okay, where did you get the hair? Because Jessica does not wear a wig. This isn't like Black Canary from DC Comics. At least at one time, she had dark hair and then wore a longer blonde wig. This isn't like that. Jessica has the hair that she has when she's Spider-Woman. So this was a little weird. Seemingly, it's like it's a fake out, like it wants us to think that she's dead, except that this is her series. We know that you're not going to kill her off. And also, in the very page where we think that she's been killed, we see that she's still alive. So it's not much of a fake out, and it doesn't make any sense. So we are told that Siren is going to meet up with Banshee in issue 148, which is a couple of issues from now. It seems like this crossover could have happened like 1 month later, and that would have lined up a little better, because while this is going on, I'm also examining the story where the X-Men go and fight Arcade and Doctor Doom in Latveria, or somewhere close to Latveria, and so it's going to be a couple of issues before that storyline everything gets resolved there, but we are told that Siren is going to meet Banshee, which makes me wonder if that was the big reason to have two simultaneous X-Men teams in this Arcade Doctor Doom storyline, where we got our main X-Men team in Latveria, and then a backup X-Men team going around rescuing the hostages that Arcade's assistant Miss Locke had kidnapped. And I wonder if that was the reason to do that, so we could bring Banshee temporarily out of retirement so that he could then meet his daughter Siren. And I don't know if that was what was going on. I assume. But anyway, this does make me wonder if Black Tom, if he is the one who raised Siren, and if Banshee does not know that he has a daughter at this point, and I don't think that he does know that, where was Siren the last time that Black Tom fought the X-Men? This would have been like issue 101, I think, when the X-Men had come back from space and Phoenix was in a hospital and they went to Ireland and they were at Cassidy Keep, and then we see Black Tom for the first time. He's teaming up with the Juggernaut. Where was Siren when all that was going on? Was she hanging out with her friends at the mall? I'd like to know where she was, because it really does feel like Claremont, who's writing this issue of Spider-Woman and has been writing the X-Men for about 5 years now, it really just feels like out of nowhere he said, I've got it. What if Banshee has a daughter? And we don't really explain where she's been this whole time. So that is something I feel like should have been explained if Black Tom was her legal guardian up until now. Also, in future appearances of Siren, and really, even though she's introduced here, it's another 10-ish years before Siren really becomes a major player in the X-books. She, I don't think, appears once in the New Mutants series. I feel like she may have been in the Fallen Angels miniseries that had Sunspot, Warlock, and then a couple of the tertiary X-Factor kids and New Mutants kids were in that. I think that Siren was in that miniseries. And then the first time that she is actually like a major, like recurring, regular character is in the early X-Force days. After Cable has kind of parted ways with X-Force, she joins the team. And she's also kind of friendly with Deadpool in some of his early appearances. So it's a while before Siren actually becomes a major character, which makes me wonder why introduce the character, Claremont, if you're not going to use her. He introduces her here, and then he doesn't really do anything with her for the rest of his time in the X-Men books. And I do wonder why. But I don't think I have anything else to say about this issue. At the end of the issue, Jessica does finally get her private investigator's license, and she sets up an office. And at issue 38, we are now setting up a new status quo for Spider-Woman. And this is something, I can't remember if I talked about this when I examined issue 37, but I did talk about this years ago when I reviewed Essential Spider-Woman Volume 1 and 2. Even though the plotting of the Spider-Woman series was kind of a mess, because every 3 minutes you had a new creative team on the series, and each creative team would kind of gently abandon what the previous creative team had set up so that they could do their own thing. So you had, like, the series just had no idea what it wanted to do. Is Jessica a highly evolved spider who was turned into a human by the High Evolutionary? No, we're not going to do that. Is she an agent of Hydra? No, we're not going to do that. Is she an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? No, we're not going to do that. Is she a bounty hunter? No, we're not going to do that. Is she a private investigator? We'll see how long that lasts. And I feel like even though the series really had a lack of identity, that really lent itself in an amazing way to the character of Spider-Woman. Even though a lot of the stories of the Spider-Woman series, I feel like, didn't really work, I think the character of Spider-Woman is amazing. I absolutely love that this character, who does not have an identity, that was reflected in the series. I thought that worked really well, and we even see Jessica talking about that in this issue. At one point, because the police think that she was involved in this robbery, she's thinking, would it be the end of the world if I stopped being Spider-Woman, if I was just Jessica Drew? And she considers that a little bit. And you think about, like, in the 90s, there was a storyline in DC called Bruce Wayne Murderer, and then that led into Bruce Wayne Fugitive, where for a while, Batman just stopped being Bruce Wayne because Bruce Wayne was wanted for murder. And he kind of considered, like, I could just be Batman all the time. And with a big billion-dollar character like that, you know that's not going to last very long. But for I'm going to be generous and say a C-list character like Jessica Drew, you could see that happening. You could see her saying, okay, I'm going to just abandon the costume. I'm just going to be a private investigator. And then as Jessica Drew, she could still use her Spider-Woman powers, and you could still have her fight supervillains as a private investigator, but she could say, I'm just going to abandon my identity as Spider-Woman since I'm wanted by the police as Spider-Woman. And that could work. Now, you'd have like this weird situation of a comic book title called Spider-Woman, and then she doesn't have a costume and she doesn't call herself Spider-Woman, so in that way it wouldn't work. But I like that she's considering it. And years later, whenever I don't know how it happens, I don't remember, but somehow she loses her powers, and for a little bit she is kind of sort of a recurring character in the X-Men books. She's friendly with the X-Men whenever they're in San Francisco. Later on in Wolverine Solo series, she's friendly with him, and we see that she's just Jessica Drew, private investigator. And so I do like that Claremont is setting up a status quo here that, probably because the series didn't last too much longer after this, but that seems to be her new status quo. It only took them over 38 issues, because she had like 4 or 5 appearances in, was it Marvel Premiere? I can't remember. Over 4 or 5 appearances before she got her own series. So it took them a while to set up her seemingly permanent status quo, but once they did, that seems to be, that's it. That's her status quo. But yeah, I do like that she is considering, like, I don't really know who I am as a person, and I'm still trying to find myself. And that makes her feel like a very real character to me. And so that's about it that I have for this issue. So let's consider this one Examine.